Hi kindergartners, it's me, Teresa Waldorf, Spark Artist, back for the third short part of our lesson on parts of a story, right? We're going to talk about parts of a story, but we're also going to talk about some of our feelings again. In our warm-up activity, we talked about how it felt to be us, right? How we felt when we were getting ready for school some mornings, how we felt when we first wake up, how we feel sometimes if we haven't had breakfast, how we feel before we go out the door. We are trying to be self-aware. But you know, it's also important to try to figure out how maybe other people feel. We call that trying to take a walk in their shoes. Like, it's like you put their shoes on and you walk around and you pretend to be them and you ask yourself, what do they feel like? It's important to do that because it helps us maybe understand how someone is feeling, and then maybe that explains why they're acting the way they're acting, right? Like, if you see someone who's throwing the ball really, really hard, like they're angry, you might think, wow, they shouldn't be throwing that ball so hard even though they're angry, and that might be true. But you might also want to say, I wonder what they're so angry about. Or maybe they're just really sad and mad, but it's coming out as anger. Have you ever seen someone who's crying and you say to yourself, I wonder why they're so sad, right? Maybe we should try to figure out, maybe if it's a friend of yours, you could go up to them and say, you seem really sad to me. Do you want to tell me why you're so sad? Or have you ever seen someone who's like running around in circles and acting really, really hyper? And you might start to get irritated with them, but then you kind of get to say, sometimes I do that too. I need to remember that sometimes I act really hyper and crazy. Maybe it's because I need a snack, or maybe it's because I'm really uncomfortable because someone asked me to do something and I don't really feel like I'm very good at doing that. There's a lot of different reasons, right? And we all have kind of like our side of the story and the way that we feel. Remember Goldilocks and the Three Bears? We acted that out yesterday where we all just walked around our chair. That was our acting area. We got to play all the characters. Let's review the parts of that story. What happened first? Goldilocks arrives at their house, right? And she goes inside. She knocks on the door and no one answers. And she goes in anyway. Do you think that was a good idea? I think Goldilocks was feeling like she was being adventuresome. And I can understand how maybe sometimes going on an adventure sounds like fun. But as a parent and as a mom, I kind of look at that and I think maybe that wasn't a good idea. So I would like to suggest that you don't go in a house if you knock on the door and no one's home, especially if it's a house where you don't know anyone. Right? That's probably not a safe idea. She also ate porridge that wasn't hers, accidentally broke a chair and then hid the pieces, and then went upstairs and fell asleep, right? And sometimes we think about that and we think, well, those were some kind of crazy decisions. I mean, the porridge didn't belong to her, and she might have been tired, but maybe she should have just gone home. But it would be fun to try to imagine why Goldilocks did that, wouldn't it? So let's review. The first part of the story, she goes in, she eats the porridge, she breaks the chair. Next, what does she do? She goes upstairs. She tries out all the beds till she finds the most comfy one. Then she falls asleep. After that, the bears come home. And the first thing the bears do is wonder why the front door is open. The next thing they do is notice that someone's been eating their porridge and sitting in their chairs. Then they go upstairs and they discover Goldilocks is sleeping in the little bed. What's the last part of the story? Baby Bear wakes her. She wakes up frightened. They all chase her out of the house and she runs away down the lane, right? I wonder how that made the bears feel. What do you think? Put yourself in the place of one of those bears and let's pretend that you're baby bear. How would that make you feel? Sad that someone broke your chair? Maybe a little angry that they ate your breakfast? Scared when you saw someone sleeping in your bed? A little excited when you chased her out of your house? Maybe sad that you couldn't make friends with her, or you didn't know her story. That's called being socially aware. Self-awareness is when we try to figure out how we feel, but being socially aware means trying to figure out how other people feel. You guys, I want to read you a funny, it's called a monologue, but what it is it's like something that Goldilocks is saying, a story that Goldilocks is telling that is her side of the story. And I want you to listen to this because I think it's kind of fun to imagine how Goldilocks might have felt. And this funny story is one person's version of how they think Goldilocks might have felt. Hi, my name is Goldilocks, and I have been the victim of a bad rap all these years. Mothers always tell their children, don't be like Goldilocks, don't be like Goldilocks. Well, I'd like you to hear my side of the story. Okay, I did walk into the bear's house when they weren't home. I readily admit that. But they had this fancy schmancy sign on the door that said, welcome. I'm no fool, I know what that word means. Bears, they make such a big fuss when somebody believes their sign. And about that porridge. Porridge. How about wallpaper paste with a few raisins in it? That stuff was awful. And you might notice they didn't really like it either. They didn't eat it. They went off walking in the woods and left their porridge there. And then they left a sign on the door saying welcome as bait, just so someone like me would go in and eat it. It was so bad. All right, I did break a chair. One chair, one cheap little chair. Wouldn't even make it in a yard sale. Besides, they could glue it back with some of that sticky porridge. Then there were those beds, if you want to call them that. Water beds with no water. No wonder those bears were off walking in the woods. They were looking for a soft place to lay down and take a nap. So sue me. Get off my back. All right, well, anyway, thanks for listening. I just wanted to set the record straight. You know, when you grow up and you read your children, be kind to Goldilocks. Tell them I wasn't such a bad kid. People just like to say that about me. Isn't that funny? It's supposed to be funny, right? We're supposed to think that Goldilocks has her side of the story. It kind of sounds like she's making excuses a little bit, doesn't it? You guys, thanks so much for joining me on this unit. We learned the parts of a story first, next, then, and last. We learned that the characters in the story are the people or the animals that the story is about. The characters in Goldilocks and the Three Bears are Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Baby Bear, and Goldilocks. And we learned what a setting is. A setting is where the story takes place, right? This one had several settings. First, the path up to their house through the woods. Then, inside their house, both in the kitchen, that was one setting, and then the bedroom upstairs, that was another setting, wasn't it? Yeah. We did a fun warm-up about the first part of our day and what we do to get ready for school. That took us through next, then, and last. And we talked a little bit about how we sometimes feel in the morning before we go to school. That was kind of fun, right? You guys were great actors and actresses. You were making your voices kind of funny for some of the characters. You were putting emotion into it and feeling into it, and you were staying right in your acting area. Nice work. Hope you had fun. See you next time.